Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something that people are not always aware of with specialty bars, but a lot of specialty bars reduce stress on the shoulder joint. That's one of the benefits of a lot of these barbells because a lot of times exercises that we do can put unusual stress on our shoulders. And when we start talking about rotating exercises to avoid overuse, or we're doing things in our training where we want to specialize in certain movement patterns, such as the bench press, anytime we can reduce extra stress on the shoulder, it can be a benefit. And again, we could talk about that for rotating exercises also. But one of the things you'll notice, a couple of lifts you'll see me doing here are doing like my box squats with the safety squat bar, doing my good mornings with the safety squat bar, and pressing with the football bar. And this could be any form of pressing with the football bar. It doesn't just have to be the bench. So people would look at this and say, well, how does this help? Well, normally when we're squatting, if we're doing very large volumes of squatting, our shoulders kind of are put into a position to where we put a lot of stress on them. And particularly people who low bar squat. There's a reason I don't low bar squat. Number one, I don't think it actually has benefits, and people can argue that all they want. I simply fail to see how it's biomechanically possible for you to move more weight with a low bar squat due to the bar position. Okay, it doesn't impact the primary movers in any meaningful way or the range of motion. So I've never understood that claim personally, but what it does do, it puts a lot of stress on your shoulders. And for me, with a previous distal bicep rupture that was repaired back in, I guess, 2005, like 15 years ago now, 2004, I forget. So it can put a lot of stress on my bicep tendon too. So I simply don't do it. And I have no trouble squatting weights that most people are shocked by, especially given my age. So it's not an issue for me to high bar squat. But the point is that squatting with the barbell on your back, it can put a fair amount of stress on the shoulders, particularly when we're doing volume stuff like our speed work. And the same thing for good mornings. So one of the solutions we have here is that the safety squat bar, notice that your hands are up in a neutral position. There's no stress at all on your shoulders. Now, am I saying the safety squat bar is a complete replacement and you should do all your squatting with it? Of course not. Of course not. Now, I know people who disagree. There are some pretty strong guys who almost exclusively squat with it. They do exist. But again, it's easier on your shoulder joints, and it can give you some relief. So let's say you're wanting to do some bench specialization, or you're wanting to do a lot of heavy pressing for a while, that could compromise your shoulder, particularly if you're a very advanced lifter or you're an older lifter like a master's lifter. It can really beat your shoulders up at a certain point. And so doing things to relieve stress on them can be helpful. And it's actually fairly common for a lot of lifters during a bench specialization phase to go over to the safety bar for all of their squatting, because they can still maintain their squat strength and build squat with it, even though it might shift some of the emphasis from the quads and the low body up to the upper and middle back, kind of like a front squat does. Oh man, don't let me say that. People are going to be like, oh my God, the front squat's an amazing quad exercise. Yeah, it's almost as good as the back squat. It's like 98% as good as the back squat for your quads, man. You're right, it's a great quad exercise. But I digress. You can do that, and again, it will be easier on your shoulders. Well, the same thing, we come over to good mornings. You see me doing good mornings most of the time these days with the safety squat bar, and it's not that there aren't benefits to the straight bar. There are certainly benefits to it. In fact, it's probably more effective for your hamstrings, whereas in the safety squat bar is a little better for your upper back and T-spine and everything in terms of where the emphasis is. But both versions do work both. And that's what we need to remember here. It's not like these muscles get removed. It's just a matter of emphasis. But we also have less stress on the shoulders. Okay? And as you become older as a lifter, this matters. And particularly really high rep good mornings. That's one of the things that I've noticed, is that when I was doing stuff like 5 sets of 20 on good mornings, that's a lot of time with your hands up there and your shoulder blades pulled back. It can cause a little bit of shoulder inflammation. It can cause some discomfort there. And if you're doing your good mornings with a safety bar, we largely alleviate that Well, as far as doing it on the good mornings, we alleviate it completely. We alleviate it completely. Now we get over to the same thing with squatting with the buffalo bar. One of the perks of the buffalo bar, not so much for me because I don't grip the bar wide. I might mess with it some though. People who grip the bar really wide on the squat, we can kind of come back to some of those low bar squatters. The buffalo bar can reduce stress on your shoulder. And the buffalo bar has full carryover, meaning the bar paths tend to be the same with the buffalo bar. You can usually do the same weight. In other words, if you could squat 500 pounds with a buffalo bar, you can squat it with a straight bar. The weight tends to be basically the same, but the main difference is the hand and shoulder position. That's the primary difference. So a lot of people use the buffalo bar for that reason, and it's one of the reasons it was invented. And it's a legitimate benefit. A legitimate benefit. So we have all of those things, and then we could talk a bit about the football bar, which you guys see me doing some of my max work there with. A couple of clips of that against bands and chains. The football bar was also specifically designed to be easier on the shoulders because we have the elbows turned in. We have pronation occurring there. It puts different stress on the shoulder joint and on the rotator cuffs, and it's very, very easy for the shoulders. And I believe the history of it, it's often called a Swiss bar. It's often called a multi-grip bar or a football bar. I believe it was originally called the football bar because a lot of football players use it who had been sustaining some shoulder injuries out on the playing field, which is quite common in American football. So hence the term football bar, referring to American football. Shoulder injuries are very, very common in football. And trying to keep their shoulders healthy can be an issue. Well, they also need a very, very large amounts of pressing strength because they're hitting and pushing 300-pound men out on the playing field. And therefore pushing power is critical for that, the ability to push and to press. Well, the football bar allows you to do very large volumes of pressing and heavy pressing while minimizing stress on the shoulder joint. It minimizes these things. And in fact, just like we talk about the floor press being useful for that, I had worked with a client for a while who gave a glowing endorsement who has damaged both of his shoulders. He had impingements in both of his shoulders. Both sides, while still being active duty, and it was affecting him in a very serious way, and he had no ability to really press heavy. Well, we got him on the floor press with the football bar, and he found that he could progress, he could lift heavy with no pain, no discomfort in his shoulders, and he got back up to where he could rep 225 that way. Okay, from being able to not do any form of heavy pressing at all to being able to rep 225 for work sets is like a night and day change. So the football bar has major applications here. So not just for people with histories of shoulder issues, but let's talk about dealing with shoulder inflammation. Okay, here's one of the big things we talk about is overuse. Well, overuse, usually you get signs of inflammation and other issues in tendons before we get an overuse injury. Okay, it's not uncommon. So if we start to get inflammation in these areas, rotating exercises can be beneficial, and shoulders tend to be a common one. Well, what's the best way to deal with that if you start to get any inflammation there? Rotate out everything that aggravates it. And if you have access to a collection of specialty bars, it becomes very, very easy for you to continue to do your exact same movements with the exact same programming without issues. You could do all of your pressing with a football bar. Doesn't matter whether it's bench, overhead press, incline, whatever you're doing. You could follow your normal programming and use that bar with no disruption. Might be a little hard to do speed work with it. You could do all of your squatting, all of your good mornings with the safety squat bar. And by doing these things, you alleviate stress on your shoulder. Okay, we prevent overuse issues from becoming worse. We allow them to heal without any reduction in training load, without any reduction in training intensity. So when people look at a lot of these specialty bars and they don't understand, they're like, why do you have all those? Are they really better than having access to a wide variety of machines and different tools? Like, yes, they are, because they allow us to change so many different angles in what we're doing that we have new exercises that we can avoid overuse, we can avoid inflammation, and we can continue to do all the same movement patterns while removing these problems. Okay? They are amazing tools. They're absolutely amazing tools. And I really wish every gym stocked these things instead of a lot of the other nonsense that they have. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.